Hey everybody, and welcome to Fleet Nav Systems Tuesday live stream. Today I am very excited to have on the show for you one of my coworkers, Sarah. She does support for us here at Fleet Nav. She's the newest member of the Fleet Nav team as of at least this recording. Who knows, by the time you're watching this, maybe we'll have somebody else, but I thought it would be really cool to get Sarah on the show today um, because I thought it would be really neat for us to be able to um, get to show you that if you're with Fleet Nav support, if you're a driver and you call in, you're going to talk to somebody who's actually had over-the-road experience, somebody who can empathize with you about running down your clock on that ELD. Sarah's also done some work as an admin, so she's seen both sides of the trucking world that we usually deal with here, only in practice as far as being able to do troubleshooting and things. We only see the computer and software side, but Sarah's actually been there as a fleet manager of sorts. Sarah, you'll be able to hopefully clear that one up for me, and also from the driving side, which I just think is really cool. So I think Sarah, I can hear you. If you want to maybe say hello, and we can, if anybody in the chat there can let us know that you can hear us. Everything looks good on my end, but that doesn't always mean.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
Hello all.
Hello. Thanks for being on the show, Sarah. So I figured we'd just kind of dive into this and get from some of your trucking experience into how you got to Fleet Nav, and we'll just kind of make our way through that. Guys, for any of you who are new to the channel, have not seen one of our live streams, we do take questions in the chat, so feel free to put stuff in there. Christina Jones was first today, and she does say that she can hear us both, so awesome. I think we're good there. If you have any questions for me or for Sarah, please feel free to throw those in the chat. I will not be taking my Geotab questions live like I usually do today. However, if you have any, feel free to leave them in the comments section for me, and I'd be happy to take a look and see about addressing them at a later date. Without any further ado, let's actually talk, Sarah, so that so I'm not wasting everybody's time. So, all right. So, I guess kind of the first question I had for you here is, how did you get into trucking in the first place? That's pretty cool.
Well, that's actually, that started out when I was really, really young. I grew up around Model Ts and Model As. My family had a Model T themselves. It was a 1926 Ford Coupe, and I grew up in that car and around other Model Ts. And it sparked an interest in me from a very young age in anything with wheels and an engine that could roll down the road and just make noise, and sports cars and just anything. I love it all, and that just continued a love for trucks and large vehicles as I grew up, and I knew all the makes and models of everything. From even just as a little kid growing up to an adult, and the interest just grew and grew and grew as I got older. So it was just kind of natural to want to be out on the road and continue on to be a driver later.
Cool, neat. I didn't have that. I had a Barbie car growing up, and we've got a picture of me like clutching the steering wheel there with the whitest knuckles and a big grimace, so didn't catch that bug myself. But what was the best part of your trucking career? And I guess, like, when did you start trucking? What how long were you on the road, and what kind of, I know you did some over the road stuff, but how long were you doing the stuff you were doing?
I wish I could say I actually did it a lot longer, but I started driving in 2015, and the absolute best part for me was the freedom. Absolute freedom. The road always calls until you've driven it and spent the time on it. You know, it's hard to express in words, but every driver out there knows what I'm referring to, and it's that call. Yeah, the road is always there. As soon as you're home and you're on your break, you always want to get back out there. And it's like I said, every driver knows what that is.
That's neat. Um, so having been all over the place, what was your favorite state to drive through? I don't know. I imagine everybody has a favorite state to drive through. I recently got to drive through Indiana, and I just like that the highways are small. It doesn't feel as scary as like Illinois and stuff. So, but I imagine somebody who's been on the road more may have a better like answer than that. So do you have a favorite state you got to drive through?
I had to think about this one. I really did.
Hmm.
And I kind of brought it down to two of them, and that's because of different times of the year. In the fall time, I have to say Vermont
Oh, cool.
because of the trees.
Yep.
Just the scenery is unbelievably gorgeous with the trees changing. The rest of the time of year, because of the routes that I took, probably Arkansas.
Okay.
It's gorgeous. You go and if you run down through the Ozarks and that Missouri, Arkansas run through there, it's I loved it. I loved it. And you get down into the Texas area, but really, really Arkansas.
Okay. Neat. I have never been to Arkansas. I'm gonna have to put that on my list. What are the roads like in Arkansas? Are they pretty straight, or when you're like, if it's near the Ozarks, do you get like some curvy mountains or?
You do get the curves. I mean,
Okay.
you got the hills and the curves a little bit,
Yep.
but for the most part, it's not too bad. I mean, it's nothing like in. See, I never traveled the Rockies. I didn't go as far as west as the Rockies, but I
Okay.
did spend a lot of time in the Appalachians. So it's nothing like that.
Gotcha.
But, if you're over in, say, I don't know, in the curves of like Ohio and Pennsylvania, little like the western side of Pennsylvania a little bit,
Hmm.
it's not even going to be quite as bad as that. Or if you're down into um, Kentucky in that area, it's similar to that.
Okay.
So, but it's really not bad at all.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out sometime. Um, Probably all of the truckers watching this are like, "What, you don't know what Arkansas is like?" But anyway, I'm ignorant, guys. I watch trucking YouTube videos. That's as good as it gets. All right, so kind of two somewhat related questions. The first one is, did you have a favorite place to stop when you were driving? And then, um, like, I'm wondering if you had like a favorite truck stop, because from what I understand, they're all a little different and stuff. Um, so the first one being like any place that would just be a nice place to stop when you were out, if you got a chance to do that, and then also just any truck stop and why? Because I've heard like some people like, hey, the showers at this particular one are particularly good or whatever. So sky's the limit there.
Well, I kind of got a little biased on this one, and that was just because I had family in this area. But I used to stop. I loved going down on my way to Miami, and I would stop at Daytona, and it didn't have anything to do with the truck stop because there's almost nowhere to stop on
Mm.
your way to Miami. But since I had family in the area, I used to stop. Near Daytona, and then I had family that would pick me up, and I used to be able to get dinner on the beach, on the sand, uh, right there at Daytona. So I have to say that was my absolute favorite time to stop over there.
Yep, that would.
So I used to love any chance I would get over there.
Yeah, anytime you can get food and a beach, that's pretty good. Pretty good in my
Hmm.
book. Nice. Um,
As far as best food,
yeah.
That's hard. That's really, really hard because with the influx of the TAs, the Petros, the pilots, things like that, the mom and pop shops are all but gone. And I've found a couple mom and pop shops around the country, but since I didn't find very many, I don't remember where I
Okay.
was when I found them. But if, I was on a dedicated route quite a bit. So I would find myself eating there was a favorite meal that I used to get at TA, and it was the chicken teriyaki, and the cooks hated cooking it because I had to do everything from scratch. So they couldn't stand when people would order the teriyaki chicken because they had to make all the chicken and the rice and everything from scratch. So I remember one night there were three of us, three drivers at the counter, and all three of us decided just to mess with the cooks, and all three of us ordered the chicken teriyaki.
Yes. I mean, that sounds good.
So we had fun with them. And it's great. It tasted great. But I think the cooks were not too happy with us.
Well, we have Kelly on our chat today. She asks what the longest distance was you ever drove on a trip.
Longest distance. That was probably my weekly drive to Texas. I had one that I used to drive from, it was a round trip, and I would start in Lima, Ohio, and I would drive to Dallas, Texas. And I would go from Dallas down to a little tiny town, basically in the heel of the boot of Louisiana, and then turn around and come back to Vandalia, Ohio.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was a 2,400 mile week every week.
Wow.
I loved it.
I flew into Louisiana once. Yep, was super excited to try some Louisiana cuisine, and my plane was late, so I just had to hop from one to the other. Didn't get to get dinner that night until
bummer.
late. But yep, someday.
Louisiana was always interesting because when I first got into Louisiana, when I first started doing that route, my introduction to where the trailers were in Louisiana was always do a quick check inside the trailer if the doors are left open to make sure there are no alligators in the trailer. And I had to re-ask that question of, excuse me? There could be a what in my trailer? So yeah, that was a nice introduction to Louisiana.
Wow. Yep, wouldn't have thought about that. Yikes. Well, that kind of goes into something I was gonna save for later, but I was wondering, I guess it kind of fits in better here now. Do you have any like crazy or unusual story from when you were driving, like anything that sticks out? Kind of like the alligators thing, but anything just totally off the wall or just memorable?
Well, I would say one of the memorable loads that I had, it's nothing crazy like the alligator, but one of the ones that always stuck in my head was when I had to take a load down to Miami, Florida. And I'm sure if there's anyone here that has been to Miami, you know how crazy it is down there, that there's nowhere to park. You can't stay in Miami overnight because there is just nowhere to go. And it's crazy busy. And I had a delivery that had to go downtown to a museum, and I was a dry van, and I had to meet up with the people at the museum to where they could offload everything by hand. It's not like there's a big dock at a museum. So I'm circling around this block trying to get them on the phone so they can come unload it. And the only place for me to park was on the street. It's a 4-lane wide, big, busy street. And I was stuck between a traffic light and a railroad track.
Oh dear.
Nowhere for else to go. And I was the exact length between the crosswalk for the intersection and the railroad track. So if a train came, it would almost be brushing the nose of my truck. So it was an interesting delivery, and they wanted me to try to back into their driveway, so to speak, between these two giant concrete pillars. And I asked the guy, I said, do you see the damage to your pillars? Well, yeah. I said, that's because the last guy couldn't do it. So I'm going to stay out here on the street.
Yep.
That was an interesting delivery.
Yeah, I have enough trouble parking a car, so we'll I have a lot of respect for anybody who can park anything bigger than that with even a marginal level of success. uh, so speaking of trucks, this is one that I don't know if you ever saw any of our earlier live streams or even stuck around till the end because, frankly, they're sometimes occasionally boring. I know that's difficult to believe, but at the end of the live streams, we occasionally have a lightning round, and one of the questions we were starting to ask in that I thought was super relevant here, which is your favorite kind of truck. Was there, I know you mentioned to me when we were talking earlier that you've driven, like, just about, it sounds like just about everything, at least to me. Do you have a particular truck that you liked the most, and if so, why?
As far as driving them, favorite for me is the Freightliner Cascadia, and that's because of my size. I'm short. It's very difficult for me to drive particular trucks. So the Cascadia fits me the best.
Mm-hmm.
I have very short legs. I'm a very short statured person. So for me to be able to reach the clutch, and yes, there's the lovely question of automatic versus manual. And for me, it's a manual all the way. You have, in personal preference,
Cool.
I prefer the manual because I feel you have more control over the truck, especially in hills, docking situations, things like that, and you're more one with the truck. So in that clutch situation, you need to be able to get the clutch where you need it when you need it, and that Cascadia fits my stature better.
All right, cool. Now, if it didn't have to do with the driving the truck, like as far as just what you think looks the coolest, what would you say?
Oh, that's any of the old classic trucks.
Okay.
That's the long nose Pete's, Kenworths, any of those. I love seeing those roll down the road with the double stacks, the chrome, all the lights. Any of the bull haulers, lights, nose to tail. Those are beautiful, beautiful trucks rolling down the road.
All right, so if you could have like one of those long nose Pete's, what color would it be?
Oh, now that's a tough question. My favorite color's black. So if I could have something just all decked out in black, have the chrome on it. You know what? I don't know if I would put chrome on it because I tend to black everything out myself.
Okay.
So I'd probably put, a nominal amount of lights on it and just black the rest of it out.
Cool.
I'd be like midnight rolling down the road.
That's cool. So kind of, I guess, on a slightly different note, what was the biggest challenge you ever faced when you were driving? Unless maybe that was that backing up one where you didn't back up. Do you ever have any particular challenges?
No. Biggest challenge, I'm sure other people will agree. Cars.
Yep. Okay.
Four-wheelers.
Yep.
They're always the unknown.
Sure.
Driving around you. They are the unpredictable element going down the road. Everything will be just fine. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and then all of a sudden someone shaves your front end as they cut right across your nose out of the blue. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're watching your mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes from the right side or from the left side and decides that they're going to jump in front of you and hit the brakes because they're too busy on their cell phone. And they're not paying attention, and they needed that exit that was, off to the right hand side, and they should have been cutting behind you instead of in front of you.
Yep.
But they're too busy talking to their buddy on the phone.
Yeah,
that's the biggest challenge.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely learned things that I think have made me a safer driver as a driver of one of those four-wheelers, like just from talking to drivers and watching other drivers talking about stuff like that in videos, because there are things like I wouldn't have even thought about. Of course, I think it's safe to say that common sense says you don't clip the truck that's right behind you. Uh, but but I know I've definitely learned some things. I was like, oh, I wish somebody like they would have told me that in driving school, because that's something that would just be nice for everybody to know. So
That is all too true. There are so many instances where truck drivers, if only the cars could understand how many times they have risked their own lives, or how many times they've almost lost their lives, that a truck driver has saved the life of that car because they took that time into their hands and made a maneuver or slowed down because the truck driver is watching that car's maneuver. They are predicting the unpredictability of that car because they watch them all day long.
Yep.
They can see what that car is doing, and they know that the car is going to make that maneuver before the car does most of the time.
That's neat. Yeah.
Because we see it.
Yeah, you'd like be subconsciously looking for, okay, what's gonna go wrong now? But yeah, I know it's funny because I would say one of the biggest perceptions I've had change in the course of having this job is that I was used to, like, when I first started driving, at 15 and a half, my biggest concern was like the semi trucks, and I was always scared of the semis. And it's funny because like that perspective has really shifted, because like, no, the professional drivers actually know what they're doing. It's everybody else that's a lot scarier.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah, that's really good. What now did the company that you were at before, did they use ELDs in 2015? I know that was pre-ELD mandate, so not everybody.
Yes, everybody up until starting at my first company, we were all ELD.
Okay. Cool. Which
now we were taught paper logs, but we started with ELDs.
Neat. Which ELD system did you use?
We started with the Qualcomms.
All right. And what did you think about that one?
They weren't bad. It was boxy. It was a big cumbersome unit in the truck, and I didn't know anything different. We had a kind of a derogatory term for the voice that came out of that box, but but it worked.
Okay.
It had navigation in it, and like I said, it was the first type of ELD that I ever knew, so I didn't know any different at the time, and it was usable.
Sure.
Now that I've used other options, I've used a system called Big Road. That was an app that was downloadable onto my phone, and that one was fine. It was user-friendly, probably a little too user-friendly.
Okay.
It was definitely a lot more like paper logs.
Gotcha. Yep.
So you could manipulate things more than probably you should be able to as far as ELDs are concerned. And now I've used, other systems as well. And I ended up using Geotab finally. And Geotab, I would say, probably the best of any of them.
I'm glad to hear that,
And
guys. Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead.
But I mean, and that's not just me trying to say that Geotab's the best. I mean, that really is just from actually using the products. And in 2015, like I said, I didn't know any differently. Qualcomm was what I used. That's what was there. But now that years down the road, and actually getting to dig into the different systems, Geotab by far is the best out of the three systems that I've gotten to know and use, just because its user interface is a lot more friendly.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to make it abundantly clear to anybody listening. I did give Sarah the questions ahead of time so that I didn't completely catch her off guard today. Most of them anyway. But but I did not actually tell her that she had to tell anybody that Geotab was the best. I feel like I need to throw
No, she
out
did
that
not. She did not
disclaimer.
tell me I had to say anything about that. That's
No.
actually coming from my own thoughts.
I was actually a little concerned going into this because I had some questions. I mean, you all knew that the ELD question was coming because that's what we do here. That's our bread and butter at Fleet Nav is ELDs. But I was a little concerned we were gonna get on here and you're gonna be like, yeah, Qualcomm was just the best, and I don't know why I'm selling Geotab now. So thank you. I'm glad that worked out serendipitously like that, because that would be, yeah, that would have
Yeah,
been
no, if I
really
had to
awkward
rank
for
them,
me.
I would say that Geotab, of the three that I did, I would say Geotab would be number one, Qualcomm would be number two, and that big road thing that I used would be by far number three, if it even made the list.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Big Road one, so I don't know if they made it all the way to that ELD compliance piece at the end there.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But let's see. And so while we're talking ELDs, what are your general thoughts on them in general? Like, do you think that they're a good thing? Do you not like them? Are you indifferent? What do you think?
Well, I'm either going to make some friends or some enemies with these answers. But, find my answers here.
Yeah,
caught
watch
me
out,
off
your
guard.
paycheck is riding. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, right.
No, I'm always curious to see what different people think about them, because there are lots of opinions. If we need a disclaimer, this is Sarah's own opinion, not Fleet Nav's. There you go. Now you can say whatever you want.
Exactly. So, and I'm sure I sort of mentioned this a little bit before, but I began driving after ELDs were in place. So I was taught paper logs, but I primarily used ELDs. So, and for one of the jobs that I held, I did a little bit of paper logs primarily as well. So I do have experience running both.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, I think ELDs are good. Used properly, they can save the driver time, so long as they don't have to sit and fill out their logs. The flip side of that is with the ELD, they now have an electronic clock as their visual reminder that now creates this stress and pressure that, you know, if they don't do as the clock says, that when, you know, if they don't make their break by the time this clock ticks down, that's constantly staring at them during the day, they're now in violation. Whereas when they were on paper, they knew, you know, because they would go in 5, 10, 15-minute intervals. They knew, like, if they missed it by a minute, they'll just say, okay, all right, I made it by that 15 minutes. I'll just mark that I made 15 minutes. And, you know, people weren't as stressed because they could just get it written down at their next stop and catch their log up. But I've truly believe that the ELDs are partially to blame why we have more speeding in cities, crashes, fatigue, things like that. And I say speeding in cities because so many of the larger companies are governed. Their trucks can only go so fast. You know, for insurance purposes, that's why they govern them.
Sure.
So they can't speed out on the open road. But when they get into the cities where the speed limit's dropped, they don't slow down because that's where they feel like they can make up time.
Yep. Yeah.
So this is why they're going to keep going. So even if, and also with the fatigue, if the driver is exhausted, but he feels he needs to make up time again, he's going to keep driving. He's not going to take that extra break, or maybe his company's pushing him to keep going because he has to make a deadline. He can't take that break, even though a 10-minute catnap or, a 10-minute just walk around the truck or something to wake him up.
Sure.
Or her, would make them feel a lot better. They can't do it.
Yep. Yeah, that's...
So...
Yeah, go ahead.
There's both sides. I was going to say, there's both sides to an ELD.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think the new ELD stuff that they've put into place, like this summer, that allows for more of that split sleeper stuff, do you think that'll alleviate at least some of that? Or do you think that drivers really need more of, like, a shorter term flexibility where it is just that 10 or 15 minutes to get up and walk around the truck?
I think the new mandates that were put in place are a drop in the pond.
Okay.
I think a lot needs to be changed because I think a lot of the mandates, whether it's the split sleeper, whether it's the 30-minute break now being on the drive clock and not just on the on-duty clock, it's and so many drivers, especially with what we're dealing with the phone calls coming in, with having to explain to drivers because the companies aren't explaining to the drivers as to the new mandate that came out about the drive clock rule versus the on-duty rule. So many drivers don't understand it.
Yep.
That, again, I think it's a drop in the pond. Drivers are being babysat by these mandates, and I think if they were given a little bit more freedom, and again, this is my personal opinion, but I think if they were given a little bit more freedom, we might not see so many accidents.
Okay.
And I think there's many, many drivers out there that feel that way. So.
What? That they can use their own common sense and judgment? What are you talking about?
Right.
No, that's really good. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always neat to just get a different perspective. I've read stuff about like people who have studied this stuff, and there was like a professor in like Pennsylvania or something who was studying hours of service and then got his CDL and went driving for like 6 months. I don't know if you heard about that one, but he was talking about all the things that he thought the hours of service mandate should include and things like that. And I know that came up like in the news a little bit with some of the trucking news I was reading when the new rules were when we knew they were coming, but they weren't in place yet. So, kind of neat to read everybody's different opinions on that. Now, besides just driving, you also worked in the office as well for a company doing stuff with logistics or something, right?
Yes.
And what exactly...
Yes, I did.
I know we've... what exactly was it that you did there? Because I think I was like, oh yeah, you were a fleet manager, but I think you said it was something not quite that title, or maybe something slightly different. Is that right?
No, I was a driver manager.
Oh, okay.
So, when I came off of being an over-the-road driver, and I did that to help my family, so I could be home more, I was driving locally for a company. And once I started driving locally for a company, and I did that for a time, with that same company, a position opened up for me to be able to be the driver manager on the account that I was on.
Oh, neat.
So as a driver manager, I was over 12 dedicated account drivers and a couple spotters, and that was at a 24-hour-a-day production facility. And we ran their just-in-time delivery for their productions.
Cool. I did see we got a question from Christina Jones. She wanted to know if you were traveling solo.
I did travel solo. Yep. My whole over-the-road career was as a solo driver. I never teamed.
All right. What caused you to leave the trucking industry? You said you were helping your family. Was that the shift there?
That was the shift there. So I promised my husband when I went over the road that if it ever caused a rift in our marriage, that I would come back. And as I was over the road and he was the one that was home doing the homebody stuff, that became a strain over time. And so I held true on my promise and I came home. I found a job that was here in our town and allowed me to be more of a local driver. And so that's what I did.
Cool. Neat. So what did you miss the most about being an over-the-road driver?
The freedom.
Okay.
That call.
Yep.
That I referred to earlier.
Don't quite get that in a local run.
Not quite.
No. Yep. So, so you said you were a driver manager. Was that job where you were a driver manager, was that where you first heard about Geotab, or like where did you first hear about Geotab in your career?
That job.
Okay.
Because when I came onto that account, that company was using it in their trucks. So when I started with that company as a driver, that was when I learned how to use Geotab. And so I was using Geotab Drive in the trucks. And then when I graduated up to being the driver manager, I was able to start using the MyGeotab function and learn how to manage my drivers through that and see all the different functionality of MyGeotab, all while using Geotab Drive as well with them.
That's great, getting to see both sides of it. That's sometimes when I'm doing my driver live streams, I'm like, guys, stick around, come on over on the Friday live stream for admins, because you might want to know this too, even if you don't use the software. And then also, like, whenever I recommend our training for admins, I'm like, please watch the driver training, because I want to make sure you guys know what we're telling your drivers and what they have to do. And it seems to work alright, but I know, like, I've cross-trained in other jobs, and when you know what one job versus another, the different, like, aspects of them, it kind of helps you to get a better understanding of how each works. And I think that's how MyGeotab and Geotab Drive kind of work together, is you get a little bit of, you know, when you know how Geotab Drive works, then knowing hours of service on the MyGeotab side makes a lot more sense. I assume you'd agree with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it once you have a really good understanding of Geotab Drive, the MyGeotab just kind of flows right on with it.
That's cool. So you saw Geotab Drive first.
Yes.
Okay. Were you, like, you said it flows, were you surprised by anything when you first got into working with MyGeotab? Or was it pretty much like, oh yeah, I got this, it's pretty much the same idea?
The latter.
Okay.
It really flowed. It
Cool.
was really easy for me to use. I really wish the company that I was working for did a little bit more training with me on how to use MyGeotab, but a lot of it I just kind of taught myself.
Okay.
There was some functionality of MyGeotab that I never learned while I was there, that I've learned since being at Fleet Nav, that would have, and maybe they didn't know it themselves,
Sure.
for all I know, that would have benefited us while I was there and helped us with the trucks, and like the ELD systems validator, for one.
Yes.
That would have been instrumental.
Yep.
In knowing what we had or needed in each of the trucks in case somebody got pulled over. I mean, I was doing it by hand. Because we didn't know, or I didn't know, that it didn't that it existed, but I didn't have it there to use.
Yeah, that's one of, I would say, the biggest challenges with my job, is trying to get the word out to people that this stuff exists. So if anybody's watching this and you guys know people using Geotab, we have an entire video library with super short videos on things like the ELD settings validator. Thank you, Sarah, for probably unintentionally giving me an opportunity to plug our YouTube channel. Um, but like this is like, if any of you happen to know somebody who can use this stuff, please send them our way. When I live stream and do demos, I'm happy to take questions after the fact if anybody wants to see things, or, is like, hey, I've got an hours of service, I do hours of service stuff, can you show me some of the functionality? If somebody typed that into the chat, we could always go through stuff on a live stream for you, or you can always reach out to me if anybody wants to see something on one of the streams, because those are, yeah, just getting it out for people, because I think I've made like 3 different iterations of the ELD settings validator video, and the hardest thing is just trying to get that information out to people so that they know it's there. That's a staple in our monthly Fleet Nav Systems hours of service newsletter we send out. There's always a link to that one. So hopefully we can help the other driver managers with that. So the ELD settings validator you mentioned, is there anything else that comes to mind off the top of your head that you've learned about Geotab since you've been with Fleet Nav Systems that you wish you would have known before?
Well, as far as tracking the drivers, one of my new favorite things has to be the audit log.
Yes.
And I have to say that only because it just gives the admin, and I don't know if everyone can see it, but it just gives the admin an ability to be able to see what's going on in a more in-depth method. So
yeah, I use that audit log all the time. We do have a video on that if anybody wants to see it, and I'll see about going back after the stream and putting a link to that in here. But yeah, you can do all sorts of really useful tracking just to see what people are doing in there. That is a good one. So we've finally gotten to the Fleet Nav part of this, Sarah. How do you like working at Fleet Nav?
Oh, I love it. It's been great. I've been accepted as part of the team, and it makes me feel like I've been here much longer than just the few weeks that it's been.
I think I can speak for everybody here that it feels the same way. It's like, yeah. Yeah, Sarah's been with us forever. So,
yeah.
We definitely have a good team.
Yeah. We do. It really, I was accepted right away. I feel like I have been, and it really does not feel like it's only been just the few. So it's really been great.
Awesome. What's the best thing that's happened so far since you've been here?
Pizza party.
Yes.
That's an easy answer. Pizza party.
Awesome. Yep. On Sarah's first day,
awesome.
We had a pizza party. We do them somewhat. We usually have them once or twice a year. I think we had 3 this year. I think COVID kind of made us. Yeah. Everybody was ready for something a little different. So, yep. Pizza party. I'm glad. That's one of my favorite days too. And I guess like the other thing that I'm wondering, because I used to take a bunch of the support calls here. I still occasionally, I still take a fair number of support calls, but not nearly to the extent that like you and Troy and some of our other team members do. So I'm wondering, like, what are your favorite kinds of support tickets or calls that come up? Like, have you had any in particular that you've been like, wow, what? Yeah, this one's particularly fun. I know I have some of my own. So what do you like to do?
Oh, for me, just because it's probably where I'm rooted, I naturally tend to gravitate towards the hours of service calls.
Cool.
Just because that's really my bread and butter. That's what I know. So I definitely lean towards those calls. Some of it I'm still learning, the other aspects of everything, but those hours of service calls, I can really nail down on those.
Neat. Yeah, I know there was some issue you were working on where you were like digging into all the compliance law and stuff last week and compiling all this stuff, and I was like, wow, this is great. I thought
Oh
I
yeah, with
knew
the
this stuff well.
FMCSA rules. Oh yes,
Yeah.
I can really dig into that.
We're gonna. It won't surprise me if the next time we talk, you're gonna be starting to quote, numbers and subsections off at me. But that's
Oh
nice.
yeah, I was doing that last week. I was
Yep.
digging into the different rules and guidelines and everything else.
Yeah, that's great. And that's the thing that I think is cool about what we do here at Fleet Nav is that we get to really dig into it because we got to know it so well to be able to help figure out what's wrong. But it's just fun to get to learn learn more of that. Christina Jones asks why she wasn't invited to the pizza
To the
party.
pizza party.
Christina, I do feel like we should at this point put you on our payroll for how often you tune into our live streams, and I do super appreciate that. We'll see about getting an invitation to our next pizza party for you. Well, I'll talk with the management about that. So Sarah, we're pretty much just about finished, but in keeping with some of our traditional questions that we've asked, kind of on just a more fun, personal note, because there's because Mark at Trucking Answers, he always has his he does cat breaks on his channel. So I'm curious to know what your preference is. Although, as your coworker, I already know this, but between cats and dogs, which one would be your favorite?
Dogs.
And
Definitely dogs. I've got 3 of them.
That's a good reason. Good. Nice. They might have a word with you if you had answered any differently. And then for the other question here, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh,
I know.
that's hard. I think I'm gonna have to go Star Trek.
Okay, and then I'm gonna have to follow up with that then by with which one was your favorite series or movie?
Next Generation.
Okay. Is that a question or is that your final answer?
That's my answer.
Nice.
That's my answer because
Good.
I like Picard.
Yep, Picard is pretty
I like
cool.
that. I like that series.
Yes, that was a very good one. We'll definitely accept that answer. I think that's a good one. So cool. Well, there you guys have it. I think that's pretty much it. Sarah, is there anything else you wanted to throw out there while we're on air still?
I don't think so. I think we dove into it pretty well.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. And we will be doing a live stream next Tuesday at 3. We have DriveWise, Doug Johnson, VP of Marketing at DriveWise. He's going to be coming on to the show. We've got a big interview planned, and we're planning to have it be a live Q&A, just like usual. So if you guys have any questions about Waystation Bypass, or you can even check out the DriveWise website. You can take a look and see what they have. And then if you guys have any questions, I would love to get some some live questions just to shake things up a bit, because we've got some questions lined up, but you guys always in the audience always provide something different than what I would have come up with. Kelly asks if there is time to ask another question. Yeah, totally, Kelly. We're not. You going anywhere, Sarah?
Nope, I'm good. What's
Great.
up?
We're gonna have to wait a minute. I'm not seeing Kelly's question here, but it should be here soon. I'm gonna double check on our YouTube one just in case. Thane is on the show
Thane
today.
says thank you both. Thank you, Thane.
Thanks for
you're
being
definitely
here,
welcome.
Thane. Alright, we'll give Kelly another minute or two to put her question in, and if she doesn't get it, we'll take it offline or in the comments or something. You'll all be left in suspense with the question that Kelly had for Christina.
Christina, I'm glad you enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here again, Christina. Good to have you. All right, another minute or two. I've had this running gag here, Sarah, that I need to actually get like some hold music or something when I'm waiting at the end of a live stream. I'm gonna have to actually like do some research on how to properly wait for a question or whatever at the end of a stream. I end up just talking, um, which works. I mean, Christina
Hey,
isn't.
why not? It's not bad.
Yeah, Christina keeps coming back, so my voice must not be that annoying, but. Alright, it looks like one more person joined the stream, so just in case that's Kelly, we're gonna give her another 30 seconds, and if not, you will all have to wait, and maybe
Well, I can tell you about
someday.
when you were asking me earlier about the
Yeah.
unusual loads. I can tell you about the load of snow that I had to haul.
Oh, did you
It wasn't real
haul it to
snow.
Florida? Oh, okay.
I might as well have hauled it to Florida. But it was the fake snow that you buy in the store for around Christmas time.
Yeah. Like the stuff, is
So
it
it
the stuff
was
you reconstitute, like with water? The gel
no,
stuff,
it
or?
was the stuff that's rolled up like batten,
Oh, okay, yep.
like that you
Like
sew
the
or whatever.
cotton.
So
Yep.
yeah, so I had rolls of this stuff. 53-foot trailer full of this stuff. So it doesn't weigh anything. It has just a little bit of weight to it.
Yeah.
I got held on a scale because because the DOT officers couldn't figure out why I wasn't overweight, but I wasn't light enough to be empty. So they held me there. So your hold music would have been perfect as I'm sitting there and they're trying to determine whether they should pull me around back and check my paperwork or let me go.
Oh, that's so
As I'm
interesting.
hauling snow.
Yeah, see, I thought you meant real snow because that's actually way funnier than when I was when I was probably like 6 or 7. I spent one Christmas in Florida with my family, and some driver had actually hauled a truckload of snow down to Florida for all of these kids because they never got to play with snow. And here I was, we
Oh.
were down in like the Naples area, so it was pretty far south Florida, and here I was like, why are we going to play with snow? We have this back home all the time. But all these other kids were very excited, and but I can't even imagine what it must have been like trying to haul a truckload of actual snow for.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, trying to keep that cold enough, yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, I don't know what kind of a reefer that would have had to have been, but
Well,
yikes.
reefers they'll set below zero. They'll keep
Okay.
them below zero inside.
Yeah, and heavy. I imagine that one would have gotten held up at the scales if they had gotten weighed, but um,
Only if it was wet. I mean, if they blow snow into it, I mean, it
gotcha.
just depends.
See, I've learned a bunch on this call too. So, well, I don't know where Kelly is with her other question, but well, if she puts it in the comment section, we'll get to it later, and the rest of you will just have to be in suspense until then. But thanks again, Sarah, for your time today. It was really fun, and it looks like everybody enjoyed this, and we hope to see you guys next Tuesday for our live stream with DriveWise. We'll talk to you later. Thanks again,
All
Sarah.
right.
Bye.
See you later. Mm-hmm.
Alright guys, that wasn't a mistake. I am actually going to see if Sarah's still on the line to take the question that Kelly gave us, and if not, that's okay. Let's see. Sarah, do you happen to still be here? Let's see. Sarah, are you still around?
I am.
Hey, you are still live. We did get the call from Kelly, and since I forgot to put up the ending stream screen anyway, I figured we would do a special Easter egg edition and ask her question. If you're game, we can get to it.
Yeah,
Cool.
We can do that.
Alright. So, for anybody who's actually stuck around this long, congratulations. This is definitely the biggest Easter egg special we've done at the end of one of these. So, Kelly asks if you've ever felt unsafe on the road or at truck stops, or found yourself in any, like, dangerous or sketchy situations.
Yes, and yes to both. So, that's kind of a given as a lady.
Yes.
So, let's see. So, felt unsafe on the road or at truck stops. Well, at truck stops, biggest thing that I always did was made sure that at night my curtains were drawn and doors were locked right away. And when the inevitable uneasy feeling would happen at certain truck stops, I would take a ratchet strap and run it through the two door handles and connect it to itself, whether it be knotting it to itself or being able to strap it to itself, and then ratchet it down so that if anybody tried to open the door, they'd be trying to close the other door at the same time. Because certain truck stops, you don't feel right. Whether it's, and I have had my door knocked on, and not sure if it was going to be a lady or a guy on the outside of that door. So you just don't make any movements like you're in there. You know, keep the lights turned off in the evening time, keep your curtain closed, and just, you don't exist. So I figure most times if I was in my truck in the evening time, once dark rolled around, they didn't know if I was a guy or a woman.
Sure.
So once I was in there, I was in there.
Yep.
And then when daylight rolled around or I was up and out of there in the morning, it didn't matter.
Sure.
But as far as your second question, found yourself in any dangerous or sketchy situations? One company I was working for, my truck was in the shop. This was up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I had to stay in a motel where the door barely locked. You could see daylight through the door, and the only thing I had on me, I had to stay overnight in this motel while my truck was, I had to walk to the motel from Freightliner, and I will never forget staying in this motel. I slept with the lights on in the room, and I had one knife open on one side of me and one knife open on the other side of me, and I don't really remember sleeping most of that night. So yeah, that's probably the worst I've felt. But in my cab, I always slept with a crowbar and a can of wasp spray and a sledgehammer next to me. Not for total fear, just protection.
Sure. I think that's wise to make sure that you've got what you need just in case. Always be prepared. Cool.
Wasp spray will really get them because it'll shoot 20 feet.
Oof. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Oh yeah.
So that's
better than mace.
So there's your tip, guys. If you ever want to have something that can shoot better than mace, wasp spray. I bet that's a little bit cheaper than mace too.
Heck yeah, it is. You get it for $1 a can on clearance.
Yeah, there you go. So cool. Well, thank you for coming back to the show while we were still live here. I'm glad we were able to catch Kelly's question. I think there's a bit of a lag in the chat here. So I think there's like when we we are live streaming, we're talking, and it's live to us, but it might not quite be at the same, it might not be quite as live to everybody else watching. So there we go. Alright, Christina says she learned several things today. Thanks for coming back. Thanks again to everybody who stuck around. And we are actually signing off for real this time. So thanks again, Sarah. Take care.
Yep, no problem. Bye.
Bye.